start the talk of today's evening. And we are going to discuss the recent advances in lung cancer. Most of the attendees, our participants, might be knowing the basic things what we are discussing nowadays on webinars. There are so many advancement is coming up in various markers like breast cancer. We were treating hormone receptor positive breast cancer, HER2 positive breast cancer, triple negative. For everything, we have different treatment schema, different flowchart, different guideline. Similarly, in lung cancer also, nowadays we have so many markers and daily we are coming across newer drugs. So I'm not going to discuss any particular drug, any particular marker. So today's talk is on lung cancer in detail, all the things, and in very general way. And I have taken the same slide which this Freshness people have sent to me, because I was thinking these are actual case scenario which might be very important, might be interesting for everyone. And for lung cancer, we all know there are some markers: EGFR, ALK, and ROS, and CMAT, BRAF. So they are markers which we are discussing on a routinely basis. So before starting this talk, let us discuss the basic thing, because I know in this talk there are some resident doctor also. So for them also it may be beneficial. So basically, we all of us we know lung cancer is divided mainly into the 4 or 5 subtypes. Out of these, most common are taken as adenocarcinoma of the lung, and then second is a squamous cell carcinoma. But of late, we are taking both at par as per the incidence is concerned. Roughly around 40% of both adenocarcinoma and squamous. It varies a little bit based on regional variation. And then obviously small cell carcinoma is less common, roughly around 20%, 10 to 20%, and large cell carcinoma is also lesser than that. So in men, this is the percentage which is showing on the screen, and women we are seeing lesser number of squamous cell carcinoma, but it is not so in actual practice. Adeno and squamous, we take it as a equal distribution. Next slide. So after this histological classification, this is an important genetic alteration in non-small cell lung cancer, and as I was discussing, EGFR is one marker based on this is a predictive marker. Predictive marker means the marker which shows the some treatment is going to be beneficial in that particular case. Those markers are called predictive marker. So EGFR is a predictive marker. KRAS, EML, ALK4, this is also predictive marker. So if we talk about particularly adenocarcinoma, EGFR is roughly around 23%, ALK4 is 6 to 7%, and KRAS is lesser than that, but this is not a predictive as of now. And as of now, these are two main markers which are coming across. We are coming across on daily routine basis. So regarding EGFR, our oncology resident might be knowing EGFR percentage, which is shown in the literature. We are seeing in our part of the world higher percentage of EGFR. Like in some institute in our area have shown up to around 40 to 50% of patients of adenocarcinoma having EGFR driver mutation. So half of the patients are having adenocarcinoma, and roughly around 7%, 7 to 8 are ALK4 positive. Next please. This is the lung cancer which was analyzed by NGS. NGS is next generation sequencing. Based on that, under some trial, and they have released the molecular data, which is distributed in TP53, 22%. This is not of much clinical significance right now. Next slide. Next. So overall survival of lung cancer, if we see the stage wise, all of us know it is a bad disease, but still we should look very carefully in stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we talk about stage 3, many patients are coming to us in stage 3B, and some lung opacity are there and intestinal lymph node. So 3 or 3B, if you see the 5-year survival, roughly around 20 to 40%. So it is not that bad, which many physicians think lung cancer is there, then gone is the case, like survival is less than a year, but it is not so. We should see this chart. Stage 3B also surviving for 5 years. Not only that, even stage 4 also going up to 5 years, although percentage is less. Around 6% patients are surviving up to 5 years. And even 2 year survival, we are seeing roughly around 20% for stage 4 also. Means patient disease has spread to other parts of the body also. Even then, they are surviving up more than 2 years. Next slide. So these survival data is very important to understand. Next slide. Regarding EGFR mutation status, EGFR we all know this is a driver mutation. Driver mutation means it drives the tumor cells to proliferate, to invade for neoangiogenesis, for extensive metastasis, or inhibition of apoptosis. So all these are mechanisms which are downstream pathway, which are seen in downstream pathway of the EGFR TKI site of action. So EGFR TKI site of action is this we are seeing in the picture. So that is called epidermal growth factor receptor, and they act after dimerization. So this is the site where they are acting as a driver mutation. The tumors are in lung cancer where this is present. So cancers are all more proliferating. So this is the target where we hit with some particular TKI, some tablet form. We start the patient on chemotherapy and wait for this result to come. And whenever this result comes, we switch over to the pills form of the treatment, which works better than the chemotherapy. Next slide. So this is a landmark study. This is a phase 3 study of afatinib versus cisplatin plus pemetrexed patient with metastatic lung cancer carcinoma with EGFR mutation. Can anyone tell which is this study among the audience? Sachin? Dr. Sachin? Parag? Are we aware of this study? Hello? Anyway, so this is a study which was published in September, and later on various updates have come. So this is called Lux Lung, I think Lux Lung 3 or 7, something like that. So patient screen were 1269, and confirmation was there for 452. Roughly around 30% patient in this study was positive for EGFR mutation by some lab testing, and they were randomized to the treatment part. 50% were, I think, 2:1. 230 were randomized to afatinib, and rest was to chemotherapy part. Next slide. So if you see this Kaplan-Meier curve, they are showing the response rate, this median PFS, progression-free survival, which was high with the that is afatinib, and 11.14 as compared to 6.9 with the chemotherapy arm. So definitely this is much better than the chemotherapy. Next slide. So after that, they got the approval for afatinib. I think they got approval around, I believe, in 2016 or 17 in this stage 4 lung cancer. This is a clinical scenario which many of our residents might be knowing. Very typical scenarios. A lady, 48-year-old lady, she came with the adenocarcinoma lung, and the right lung was there involved, in situ left lung was also, and brain lesion at the time of diagnosis. So treatment naive, she was having brain metastasis, and no readily available molecular testing for EGFR or other target marker were available. So she received brain radiation because at that time no marker was readily available at that time, and subsequently received palliative chemotherapy. Next slide. After receiving this palliative chemotherapy, she had progressive disease in the bones and liver, and leptomeningeal carcinomatosis were also there. And in the meantime, biopsy report was done for EGFR, which was positive. Started on erlotinib in 2013 only, and remained on this medication until 2016. So this is the very good case scenario to highlight the point that erlotinib had worked for 3 years in this case scenario in this young lady, where this has worked even despite having the leptomeningeal disease, where we used to see only 8 month, 10 month survival, but this lady had survived for 3 years on this simple erlotinib, which is first generation TKI. Next slide. So this is the slide which is very much into the picture nowadays in most of the webinar, which was presented in recent ESCO this year. And in this slide they have shown all the 3 generation of TKI which are effective in EGFR driver mutation. First generation is gefitinib, erlotinib. Second generation is afatinib and dacomitinib. And third generation is osimertinib. So they are acting at different level. For T790M mutation, osimertinib is the third generation which is very effective, not the first and second generation. Next slide. There are some rare mutations which are shown in the picture, for which they are effective drugs. Afatinib is more effective. Now we come to the ALK positive non-small cell cancer. The patients who are found to have ALK positive on the ISC, which is a recommended and accepted mode of this thing nowadays. Earlier we were doing FISH for ALK alteration, but now IHC is good enough. And this is the chromosome 2p, there is inversion. So ALK fusion protein is there, and which helps in the these activation of these pathways, PI3K, mTOR, with the help for the help of cell survival and proliferation. Next slide. So this is also a proliferative marker for the lung cancer cells, and targeted agent are there for this. And this was a landmark study which have shown the overall survival benefit of the first line crizotinib. This is the first generation ALK inhibitor as compared to chemotherapy in those patients who are ALK positive. So I think this was the trial named Profile 1014, and these are important trial names to remember by the resident oncology resident at least. So Profile 1014 was the landmark trial, based on which they got the approval for the crizotinib. First line means patient are having ALK positive, so rather than putting her on chemotherapy, we can go for the crizotinib. So in this trial, next slide, 343 patients were taken, 50-50 distribution in 2 arms, and crizotinib have shown good outcome in overall survival. And still, even after 5 years, you see 60 months, the curves are still separated. Chemotherapy was the yellow one, and crizotinib is the blue one. Curves are still separated, and they are continuing to, even 50% patients are still continuing without any difficulty, without any this thing, losing their life, this thing. So they are still surviving beyond 5 years. Next slide. Again, this is the case scenario. 64-year-old lady, adenocarcinoma stage 3A, and routinely we know concurrently, and post-treatment, 6 surgeons said there is residual tumor. We know a lot of patients, around 60 to 70% patients we have, which are still having residual disease after giving CTRT, and we just go on for monitoring without therapy until this was for until 3 years. So this lady was not having any problem for 3 years with some residual disease. But of late, we are putting those type of patients on erlotinib maintenance without EGFR mutation strata, at least if they are adeno or the squamous non-smoker. Next slide. So at least for 3 years, she was without any treatment and just on follow-up. And when she was found to have a lung progression and mediastinal, she was smoking. So quit smoking around 30 years back, and repeat biopsy was done, and she was found to have ALK positive. And she was started on standard, which is crizotinib, we have discussed as per Profile 1014. And she remained on this drug for 2 years, 2.5 years. And then she had brain metastasis, for which stereotactic radiation was given, and ALK inhibitor was switched to alectinib. Next generation ALK inhibitor, and she's still continuing on this drug till date. I don't know till date what does it mean, when was this problem. I believe on alectinib also patient can go for more than a year or so. Next slide. Yeah, this was a trial based on which alectinib got approval in the even first line, because it was compared with the crizotinib, which was standard as at that point of time. So alectinib versus crizotinib was compared in this trial, and I think this trial name is ALEX, ALEX, ALEX 3 or something like that. ALEX trial we can say, and which was published in NEJM 2017, based on which they got the approval. 303 patients equally distributed. Next slide. 600 milligram twice a day was given. That is alectinib, and beautifully they have shown the PFS and OS survival curves. Huge separation between the crizotinib and alectinib, and after seeing this PFS curve separation, there is no doubt that alectinib can be taken as a first line drug uh, in the stage 4. And even after 2 years, 60% patients are surviving as compared to only 20% on crizotinib. OS survival, huge difference. Like 70% patients are beyond 2 years, and here not huge, at least 10% difference in OS survival. Next slide. The important point to highlight regarding alectinib is that it has got very good activity in the CNS disease control, and 12-month cumulative incidence of the CNS progression was 9.4% only with the alectinib, whereas it was 41% in the crizotinib. Because we must remember, ALK positive patients are bound to have, or even EGFR positive are more likely to have CNS mets at some point of time during progression or even at presentation. So alectinib has got much better role in the intracranial response as compared to crizotinib. Next slide. So again another case scenario. Uh, Again 67-year-old young male, adenocarcinoma, ALK positive at presentation, multiple meds, started on crizotinib in 2016 because that time it was the only standard. Next slide. So they have shown the radiological picture of the CA lung opacities and intestinal window. Next slide. Next. Next. Yeah, this is the important thing to see. In the intracranial, there was small nodule was there, opacity in the brain. Probably these were asymptomatic. Next slide. So in this particular scenario, they have not given any radiation to the brain, but rather they switched to next generation alectinib, because by the time they got the approval for this drug, and still the patient is on alectinib for around 2 years, more than 2 years, in fact, without giving any radiation to the brain. So take home message from this case discussion is that if patient is not having any symptom regarding the brain metastasis, so we can avoid radiation, and we should try to convince our radiation colleague also that radiation is not that much required in this scenario. Next slide. Another thing, the almost I think the same case, similar case, crizotinib, then ceritinib was there, and then alectinib. In sequentially, they have shown some response, because in EGFR we are saying that after using gefitinib, uh, we cannot use, there no data as such. We can switch over gefitinib to allortinib, then afatinib, then recomitinib. We cannot switch over like that. But in the ALK inhibitor, we are seeing the patients are working in this way also. Next slide. This is a chemotherapy thing. I think we'll skip the part. Next slide. Next. Yeah, this is the talk of the town nowadays. PD1, PDL1 pathway in the role of these drugs in the lung cancer. Because our oncology resident know this PDL pathway is coming up in a big way. Not coming up, in fact, is being given already in lot of malignancy, breast cancer, melanoma, lung cancer, even a lot of solid other malignancy, cholangiocarcinoma, prostate cancer. So a lot of malignancy they are coming up, and they are as of now 3-4 drugs which are available: nivolumab, pembrolizumab, atezolizumab, and durvalumab. So these are 4 drugs which are available with us. Next slide. Which we are using in routine practice in various malignancy. So this was the trial, nivolumab versus docetaxel in advanced squamous cell lung cancer. Next slide, which was published in 2015 in NEJM. And based on that, they got the approval of the single agent nivolumab in squamous cell. Not only squamous, even non-squamous, they have shown some response. We see the overall survival outcome. With the docetaxel, it's only 6 months. With nivolumab, it is 9.2 months. And 1 year overseas is 42 months. So almost doubled the response of the chemotherapy in squamous cell. In non-squamous also, it is much higher than the chemotherapy part. Next slide. So again, there is a scenario where we got the ALK or EGFR negative. We sent the molecular marker. There was a heavy disease load to the lungs and liver. Chemotherapy was started, followed by maintenance with the pemetrexed. This was the standard that time. Maintenance pemetrexed with stable disease. Next slide. Then on progression, next slide. There was a maintenance phase and then returns to clinic 2015. Next slide. Yeah, there was a progression in the 2015. Next slide. So she was started on pemetrexed for 31 cycles. Next slide. Means on maintenance, so there is no counting. We can give as many as number of the pemetrexed cycle in the maintenance. We have given even beyond 3 year, 4 year. Last slide. Go to last slide. So on disease progression, means patient was there on pemetrexed maintenance for 3-4 years, and then on progression she was switched to the nivolumab, which is continuing as of date. I think it was for under 1 year or so. Next slide. So this is another one more example. 58-year-old male T3N1 surgical resection was done and decided to get adjuvant chemo. Next slide. And she had relapse in the bilateral lung. Palliative chemo was given and then immunotherapy upon progression. Next slide. With good result. So this was another immunotherapy, that is pembrolizumab versus chemotherapy for PD-L1 positive non-small cell lung cancer patients. Pembrolizumab as a single agent, these are showing near about 2 year survival, roughly around 70% cases. With the chemo only 50%. So pembrolizumab has got single agent activity better than chemotherapy in PD-L1 positive non-small cell lung cancer, be it squamous, be it in all variety of lung cancer, except small cell. So very good drug. So based on that, they got approval. Pembrolizumab. I think this was the trial keynote 0 to 4. Next slide. Yeah, same trial. They have shown patients who survived. Sorry, this is a pembrolizumab combination, and I think this is a separate trial slide. Yeah, this is a combination. I think this is some other keynote. This is not T024. Here they have combined pembrolizumab with the chemotherapy in stage 4, and combination is showing much better advantage than chemo alone. Next slide. So next, as of now, we see there are a lot of things happening in the non-small cell, be it adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma. Now immunotherapy has come up in the even small cell carcinoma. Around 1 year back, we were having notion that immunotherapy has no role in small cell, but data is coming up and we are using this. Historically, platinum and topoisomerase is the key drug for squamous cell carcinoma, very good response rate, but sooner patient gets relapse within a year or so. Next slide. Yeah, after this spread etoposide, a lot of patients do progress, and there are so many trials which failed to show any improvement in OS with any newer experimental drugs. Next slide. Because small cell lung cancer is very aggressive, more aggressive than non-small cell cancer, and there is a very high mutational burden seen in small cell carcinoma of the lung. So immunotherapy has found to be effective in this scenario. Next slide. These were the very early trials in 2012. So this was a keynote 158 phase 2 study for pembrolizumab. Next slide. Not much improvement with this. Then checkmate 032 for nivolumab along with ipilimumab in various malignancies. So lung cancer was also there in this small cell lung cancer. Next slide. Next. So this 032 have shown nivolumab monotherapy for third line small cell lung cancer, for which they got approval in 2019. This trial was published in 2019, and this is available for single agent usage nivolumab. Next slide. With good more than 6 month benefit at least in third line setting. Next slide. Next. So regarding the small cell lung cancer, to conclude, as a monotherapy, there are high expectation, tempered or modest outcome. Durable response possible but not likely. Nivolumab approved as later line. And greatest opportunity to affect disease in the first line setting. So now trials are going on, which is still in the initial stage, to test these immunotherapy in the first line setting. But somehow, as of now, these are approved for the second line and not, I think, in the third line setting only, and not in the first line, as contrast to the non-small cell lung cancer. Next slide. So I think this was all about. There some more slides are there, so I would try to complete it. So combination immunotherapy in small cell lung cancer. Next slide. Next slide. So they have tried to assess the combination data also, immunotherapy along with chemotherapy combination. Next slide. Next slide. Next. I think IMpower 1333. This is the trial. Next slide. Next. Yeah, this is a trial which is being discussed nowadays because of its importance. Like they are showing atezolizumab along with carboplatin etoposide in the first line, and this is the few among the few trials which have shown advantage when the immunotherapy used in the first line setting along with maintenance atezolizumab. Next slide. So we should remember this IMpower 133, and demographic profile was very well balanced among two arms of placebo versus experimental drug. Next slide. And if you see the all the response, no difference in response rate as such. Although if you see the progressive disease, stable disease was also similar. Next slide. Next slide. So there was not much difference in the outcome in two arms, particularly in this trial. Side effect profile was also similar, more or less. Neutropenia, anemia, rash. Next slide. We know. Addition of concurrentism based on this improved OS and non-usage. I don't know. There's some more data has come up after this trial, based on which they got the approval of atezolizumab in the first line setting. Next slide. And only 4 cycles of chemotherapy to be given. Next slide. Next. I think this is regarding sequencing of immunotherapy, which is very confusing or inconclusive part of the discussion. I will skip this. Next slide. So skip. In the end, we will come to the discussion part of the toxicity profile. Next slide. Of the immunotherapy drugs. What are the next slide? What are the toxicity profile? Common toxicity profile. Next. We all have seen during our experience. Resident doctor knows what are the common side effects of immunotherapy. Next slide. This is also not very important. Next. I think we'll come to the toxicity. Next slide. So pneumonitis is a very fatal complication of immunotherapy, be it nivolumab, pembrolizumab, or atezolizumab. So we should have very low index of suspicion. so that we can early recognize this pneumonitis part. We should not be carried away by the primary disease opacities, and should intervene at the critical point of time. New worsening of hypoxia should be assessed very quickly. Next slide. Next. Yeah, we can see in the lung CT, this is showing the new worsening. So here, rather than thinking of the disease progression, we should keep in mind the side effect profile of the immunotherapy. Next slide. And which are very well reversible with the management, with the steroid only, starting with the low dose steroid 0.5 to 1 milligram per kilogram per day of prednisolone, and severe we discontinue the drug, and along with high dose steroid. So dose reduction is not recommended, so we can avoid delays in the interruption of this treatment part. It's like, to summarize our immunotherapy in small cell carcinoma, again same thing, atezolizumab is approved as the first line. Second line strategy have failed. Although some trial have shown of data that nivolumab in the third line, some beneficial. That's it for the small cell carcinoma. Next slide. I think we have completed the discussion part of the lung cancer, various molecular marker, various discussion of different case scenario. Any further